Hi everyone, Stepan here. I'm going to continue showing you my games. After a while, I'm on an island in Croatia, and I'm sorry if you can hear outside noises like waves crashing or crickets or boats or people going to their fields, because there are some local people walking around already, even though it's 6 a.m. So I'm going to show you my round 4 game from the Croatian League, played last spring. I faced an opponent rated 2000 in a King's Indian, and this was a key match because we haven't started the league perfectly. We won round 1 and then we got destroyed in round 2. So the Croatian League is played on 6 boards, and in round 2 we got just smashed. And in round 3 I couldn't play round 3, so I don't remember exactly what happened, but I know that this was a key match. So I started with pawn to d4 and we got into a King's Indian. So after g6, knight c3, bishop g7, I played e4, d6, and once again I went for the semi-overback with bishop e2, bishop e3, and I wanted to play g4 and my usual stuff. So bishop e3. Now the main move is e5, and after e5 I go d5, black goes knight d7 or knight a6, and then g4, and white starts an attack. But my opponent surprised me with knight c6, and this is a move I've faced before, actually a month or so before this game, and I played the same thing I played then. I played d5, and in this position in my last game my opponent played knight e5, which is the main move, and on knight e5 white can play f4, which I did play that game, which is slightly risky, or white can play h3, simply controlling the g4 square and then playing positionally. However, after d5 my opponent played knight b8, which is extremely passive, and white should have a significant advantage already. I played h3, which I think is a good positional idea. I want to play knight f3 without allowing knight g4 and knight e5 in many positions, or bishop g4. He played c6, which the engine says this is a big mistake, but I think it makes sense to open up the center. Okay, knight f3, knight bd7, this all seems normal. Castles, a6 wants to play b5, queen c2. So I'm ready to move my knight if I need to. My e4 pawn is defended. I'm also playing against e6 or e5 because I can quickly put a rook on e1 and on d1. So if e6, or even if I manage to take on c6, I'll have my rook opposite the queen. So in this position my opponent took cd5 and I took ed5, because why not? e7 is weak and I think I'll be able to mount some pressure on the pawn. Knight c5. Okay, I don't think black's position is even playable anymore. It seems that white's pieces are just perfect and black's pieces are very awkwardly placed. They have no squares. The only good squares, or the only good square for a potential developing move would be f5 for the bishop. So I just played knight d4, preventing bishop f5, and now it wasn't at all clear to me what black should do. My opponent played a5, which, I mean, is okay. He wants to play a4 and the standard King's Indian queenside advance, but that gives away b5, and now I have the b5 square. I have a weakness on e7 to target, so I just played rook a d1, and I'm ready to start putting pressure on e7 with maybe bishop g5, or maybe even knight b5 in some positions, maybe bishop f4 to target d6 as well. He played bishop d7, and now I think, or this is a move I could have included on the previous turn as well, and that's b3. So in the King's Indian, when they play a5 and want to play a4, b3 is a good idea, because then on a4 you can play b4. The knight on c5 is usually black's strongest piece, so b3 would have made a lot of sense, just preventing a4. And once again, it would not have been clear at all what black should be doing. I mean, e6 leaves d6 extremely weak, so how does black do anything. And I was thinking that during the game, so I played rook fe1. I mean, it seemed like a4 wouldn't be a big deal. I don't really care about a4. In fact, what if I go knight b5? Does black take? Do I just get to take and take on a4? I don't know. I mean, I wasn't too sure that I should keep my dark squared bishop, especially if I can create a potential passed pawn on d5. So, for example, I don't know. I don't know what black plays. Let's say rook e8. What if I do take? Takes, takes, takes. I don't know. So I wasn't really afraid of a4, and rook fe1 isn't a big mistake, but b3 would have been more precise. So he played rook e8, I played bishop f3, which is fine, starting to target e7 and improving my bishop. So if e6, my bishop will be very good. Queen c8. Well, the queen isn't opposite my rook anymore. That's one thing. Other than that, I don't see what the move does. I played knight cb5. Once again, I could have played b3. He played a4, and now since a4 has been played, I could go b4 anyway and start not undermining or start chasing the knight away. So if b4, that has to be taken. And now next move I'm gonna go b4 again. Again, if I can get rid of this knight, black's best piece, then I should have a more comfortable position. But instead I played bishop f4, and bishop f4 is a weird move. I think so, but I wanted to play rook e2, rook e1, and I couldn't see a comfortable way to defend other than bishop f8 or queen d8. So bishop f4 is just putting pressure on e7. My opponent took on b5. I took back with the knight, of course, and now in some positions I could take twice on d6, create a passed pawn. So he played queen d7. Let's say a random move is played. This isn't random, this defends d6. Let's say bishop h8 and take. Rook takes queen, queen takes, knight d6. I'm not sure if this is enough or not, but the pawn on d5 is extremely strong, and my knight's going to be great on b5. I'm going to play b4. So for example, queen d7, knight b5, I don't know, rook e8, b4, takes, takes. It seems promising, although I'm not sure I would have taken that. He played queen d7 defending anyway, so a moot point. Rook e2, I want to go rook e1. Rook ac8, again a move that doesn't do that much. Maybe knight d5 can be set up in some positions, but my bishop defends, so it's not really a big deal. Knight d5 to target the queen and to undefend the knight. But as long as I have a bishop on f3, that shouldn't work. So rook d1. Bishop f8 defending. Not that it needed defending, there's a queen on d7, but still. And I played bishop g5 here. I thought, okay, if I can take on f6, undefending the d6 pawn. Well, first of all, bishop f6 would win immediately, because oh no, okay, there's a bishop on f8. But if the bishop was still on g7, then takes on f6, ef6 takes twice on e8, and knight d6, winning the d6 pawn. But there's a bishop on f8 defending d6, so it doesn't work yet. But I would still want to take in some cases. My opponent played h6, and I had the longest think of the game here, and I blundered. So you can pause the video here. This is actually a very interesting position. What would you do here? So I played the only move that gives up a 1.5 point advantage and allows such a nice liberating idea for black, that allows black to equalize, or even more than equalize. I would argue that the position you're about to see is going to be easier for black to play. So the best move, I think, is bishop e3. And black should play e5 while they have the chance. So e5, and now d6, knight e6, and knight c3. Black cannot take on c4. If rook c4, there's knight d5. A great tactic, which I did not see during the game. I saw it during analysis. So if rook c4, knight d5, rook c2, knight f6, king g7, knight d7, and it should be game over. So the c4 pawn is immune, and I have the d5 square for my pieces. I'm gonna go b3, solidifying c4. I still have a ton of pressure down the e file, and this should be, according to the engine, winning. From a human perspective, I would say easier to play for white. Black has multiple targets, and I can just take on a4 if nothing's done. Bishop takes f6 would have also been okay, better than what I did. I played bishop f4, which is very, very stupid. Why? e5 comes with tempo. I have to take it. Not only do I have to take it, but d5 is coming very, very quickly. And my bishop on f4 isn't defended. So what I'd missed, and I saw e5, I'd missed that knight takes, attacking the bishop. And now, when I move my bishop back, d5 can come immediately. My knight isn't defended on b5, so I cannot take. And this is just horrendous. Not that I'm worse, I'm equal, but I don't have an advantage anymore because black is just trading off all the weaknesses, opening up the center. There's no King's Indian advantage. So I save my bishop. Okay, bishop g3. Bishop g3 is inaccurate. I should have gone queen c1, but nevertheless, it's pretty much similar. And d5, and now of course on cd5 I lose my queen or I lose my knight. I lose the game. The engine plays rook d1 here, which I have considered, but I played b3. b3 is slightly better for black. Rook d1 is slightly better for white, but again, pretty similar. Takes, dc4, bc4, and knight g5. And I don't have a square for my bishop. I'm going to lose the bishop pair. The only chance for an advantage in this position. So queen b3, unpinning everything. Black couldn't have taken the knight because my queen is defended. But after knight g5, queen b3, I'm getting rid of that pin in any case. He took on f3, I took with the queen, he took on e2. Now I don't want to take with the queen because of rook e8. So I took with the rook. He cannot take on c4 because queen f6, and then if you take the knight, I have bishop e5. So for example, rook c4, queen f6, queen b5, bishop e5, and resigns. So that didn't work. So on rook e2 he played knight h5, which makes sense. Now I have to defend my pawn. So rook e4, I don't see another option. If I play rook c2, he just, well, he doesn't give up the queen for the knight and rook, but it's uncomfortable having to deal with that pin constantly. And I think my opponent just wanted a draw, so he took. I took with the queen, and you can imagine I was really upset at this point. It's perfectly equal, but I think black's the one playing for the win because the bishop is much stronger than the knight in this position, especially since it can sit comfortably on c5. My knight has no safe squares. Coming to d5 would be great, but it's really hard to do. And once I do get to d5, if black is defending f6, then the knight can easily be undermined with b5. So I don't think it has a future in the center. In fact, I think I have to keep it on b5 simply to prevent b5. My opponent played queen f5, which makes sense. Attacks the rook. I played rook f4, which is okay. It's according to the engine, it's just all zeros. Nothing's going on. Queen e6 attacking the pawn. Queen d3 defending. Bishop c5. A great piece compared to this stupid knight. King h2. There's no bishop d6, so I wanted to get my king off the back rank to prevent queen e1. G5. Okay. rook e4, nothing's going on, queen f6, f3. Now, I would have lost the pawn, and I have decided to give up the dark squares instead because I'm still controlling d6 and I couldn't see a good infiltration for the rook. If rook d8 is played in this position, I have queen e2, and that's exactly what happened. So rook d8, queen e2, and if I can trade the rooks off, it shouldn't be a problem. As I said, and I mean, the engine agrees f3 was the best move. It's just very, very hard to play. I'm basically a minor piece down when it comes to attacking. The bishop on c5 is amazing. And in this position, he played bishop d6, which I was really happy to see. Because now I cannot lose. The dark squares are secure. Knight d6, queen d6, king h1, and that's it. This should just be a draw. Whether we trade rooks or queens doesn't matter. The structure is symmetrical. If we reach a rook endgame, we will likely trade the b pawn for the c pawn. If we reach a queen endgame, one can just keep a queen on e4 as white, and there shouldn't be any issues. He played rook a8, which is a good move, threatening mate. So queen b2. Now if the rook moves, I'm threatening mate. So yeah, he played b6. I think it's just a waiting move. And I decided to risk giving up a pawn to start opening up the position. So I played h4. And I would love him to take on h4 with the pawn. Then I would have some actual chances. If, let's say, gh4, rook g4, king f8, queen h8 wins the rook and the game. So he played rook d8. I didn't want to take on g5, there's no need for that. I played queen c3. He played queen g3, attacking the pawn, queen c2. I have to defend d1, f5, okay, rook e2, and now he can take on h4 with check, unfortunately. But still, it's a draw. I was risking playing h4, and I knew that, but I don't think it should be a big deal. He played queen d4 check. I played king h1, and here he decided to trade queens. And after rook c1, rook e6, I offered the draw, and my opponent accepted. It's of course completely equal. It doesn't really matter what he does. He cannot defend both pawns. If, let's say, king g7, rook b6, rook c4, it's a dead draw. So I have to say I was really upset with this game, and we didn't do well in the match either. But okay, I mean, and they had enough time on the clock. That's the worst part. That's the worst of it. Okay, I'm going to continue showing you my games. We are going to be looking at one of my favorite tournaments so far. Maybe my favorite tournament since I've started playing chess. And I'm gonna start covering games from that tournament soon. It was the Zagreb Cup, Zagreb Team Cup, and my team did really well. Okay, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more chess. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.